There's a military branch that breaks you down more brutally, promotes you more slowly, and pays you less than any other service, and still claims to be the elite. It's called the Marine Corps, and if you think the Army's rank structure is harsh, wait until you see what the Marines do to their people. In 1968, a Marine private landed at Khe Sanh during the most intense combat of the Vietnam War. He made $134 a month, $1,200 in today's money. His life expectancy in combat was measured in weeks. He lived in a hole in the ground, ate cold rations, and watched friends die daily. The sergeant leading his squad made $220 a month. Both knew they were probably going to die. The sergeant just got paid $86 more to die first. In 2004, a Marine Lance Corporal fought house to house in Fallujah during the bloodiest urban combat since Sioux City. He made $1,700 a month. His platoon commander, a second lieutenant fresh out of college, made $3,100 a month and had authority to order him into buildings where insurgents waited with machine guns. One kicked in doors. One read maps. Both could die, but only one got paid enough to afford a car payment back home. In 2025, a Marine Corps 4-star general commands 186,000 Marines worldwide with a budget of $53 billion. He makes $16,974 per month, the same as an Army 4-star general. But the private loading supplies at Camp Pendleton at 4 a.m. makes $2,017 per month, the same as an Army private. Same pay structure, same ranks. But the Marines will tell you they're different. They're harder, they're elite, they're better. But here's what should terrify anyone considering the Marines. They promote slower than the Army. They hold higher standards for the same ranks. They're smaller, so competition is more brutal. And they have a culture that glorifies suffering. Being a Marine means embracing the fact that you'll work harder, wait longer for promotion, and be treated worse than soldiers in other branches. And Marines are proud of this. This is every rank in the U.S. Marine Corps explained. Why promotion takes years longer than the Army, how the Corps keeps you at the bottom deliberately, and why the Marine rank structure is designed to make you suffer, because suffering is the point. The Marine Corps difference, why everything takes longer before we break down individual ranks. You need to understand why the Marine Corps rank structure is more brutal than the Army's. It's not just tradition, it's deliberate design. The Marine Corps is smaller, 186,000 active-duty Marines versus 480,000 active-duty soldiers. Fewer positions means fewer promotion slots. When the Army needs 10,000 new sergeants, they promote 10,000. When the Marines need 2,000 new sergeants, they promote 2,000. The competition is mathematically more intense. Marines promote slower by policy. The Army promotes E1 to E2 after 6 months. Marines require 9-12 months. Army promotes to E3 after 12 more months. Marines require 8-12 more months. At every rank, Marines wait longer. This is intentional. The Corps believes slower promotion creates better Marines. Marine standards are higher for the same ranks. An Army specialist E4 needs basic competence in their job. A Marine Corporal E4 needs demonstrated leadership ability and combat readiness. Same pay grade, higher standard. The Marines don't have specialist as a non-leadership rank. Every E4 is expected to lead. But here's the brutal reality. Marines make the same money as Army soldiers at the same rank. An E5 Marine sergeant makes $2,881 per month, identical to an Army E5. But the Marine waited longer to get there, met higher standards, and is expected to perform at a higher level. Same pay, more suffering. That's the Marine way. The Marine Corps doesn't apologize for this. They're proud of it. They tell recruits that being a Marine is harder than being in the Army. They're right. The question is whether the extra suffering actually produces better warriors or just produces people who are really good at suffering. Enlisted Ranks. The 98% who bleed for the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor Private E1. You are less than nothing. This is what the first 9-12 months of your Marine Corps career looks like. You're not a Marine. You're a private, real Marines. The ones who completed their first enlistment or earned meritorious promotion will remind you constantly that you haven't earned the title yet. You're just wearing the uniform. You wake up at 4 a.m. earlier than the Army. You run farther than the Army. You clean more than the Army. You get hazed more than the Army. Every minute of your day is designed to break you down and rebuild you into something the Marine Corps can use. And you make $2,017 per month for this privilege. The Marine Corps keeps you at E1 longer than any other branch. Army promotes to E2 after 6 months automatically. Marines require 9-12 months. Why? Because the Marine Corps believes suffering builds character. Because keeping you at the absolute bottom longer makes you appreciate finally moving up. Because the Marine Corps doesn't care about your feelings. And here's what makes it worse. As an E1 Marine, you're constantly compared to Army soldiers. We're not the Army, your sergeant will say while you're cleaning the barracks for the 3rd time today. We have standards. Those standards mean you stay E1 longer, work harder, and get treated worse than an Army private doing the same job. Private First Class E2, slightly less worthless. After 9-12 months of proving you're not completely useless, you get promoted to E2. You earn a single stripe, a chevron pointing up. You make $246 more per month. You're still called private. You're still doing the same work. You're still at the absolute bottom of the hierarchy. The Army promotes E1 to E2 after 6 months. The Marines take 9-12 months. That's 3-6 extra months at the lowest rank for the same pay increase. The Marine Corps will tell you this builds discipline. What it actually builds is resentment and the knowledge that you chose the hardest branch for no additional money. Promotion to E3 takes another 8-12 months. So you spend 17-24 months as some version of private in the Marine Corps. Compare that to the Army's 18-24 months total. Similar time frame. But the Marines make you wait longer at E1 before even starting the E2 clock. Every step takes longer. Every promotion is harder. Same money. More suffering. Lance Corporal E3. The backbone and the punching bag. Lance Corporal is the most important rank in the Marine Corps, and also the most miserable. You've been in for 18-24 months. You're competent at your job. You're trusted to work independently. And you're about to discover that being competent means getting assigned everyone else's work. Lance corporals do everything. The privates are too new to be trusted. The corporals are too busy supervising. The sergeants are doing NCO work. So the lance corporals do the actual work of the Marine Corps. Cleaning weapons, loading trucks, running gear, standing watch, pulling security. Lance corporals are everywhere doing everything, getting blamed for everything. But here's the brutal part about E3 in the Marines. This is where Marines get stuck. The promotion to E4 corporal is viciously competitive and requires actual leadership ability. The Army has specialist at E4, a technical expert rank that doesn't require leadership. The Marines don't. Every E4 Marine is a corporal, and every corporal must be a leader. No technical expert track. No avoiding leadership responsibility. So lance corporals get stuck. They try for corporal and fail. They try again and fail again. Some spend 4 misses 6 years as lance corporals, same rank at year 2 as at year 6. Making $2,385 per month while watching Army specialists with the same time in service make the same money but avoid leadership responsibility. The Marine Corps will tell you this is because Marine standards are higher. And they're right, but higher standards don't pay better. The promotion rate from E3 to E4 in the Marines is about 30 to 40%. In the Army, it's 50 to 60%. The Marines deliberately make it harder. Being stuck at Lance Corporal for years is expected. It's part of the culture. Lance Corporals who complain about it get told you should have joined the Army if you wanted easy promotions. Corporal E4, you're a leader now, whether you want to be or not. If you make corporal, you've beaten the odds. You've survived 3 mighty 4 years in the Marine Corps. You've demonstrated leadership ability under pressure. You're now responsible for 3-4 Marines, and their lives are your burden. But here's what nobody tells you about being a Marine Corporal. You're expected to perform at the level of an Army Sergeant E5, but you're paid at the E4 level. Marine Corporals lead fire teams in combat. Army fire teams are led by E4 specialists or E5 sergeants. Same responsibility, same mission, but the Marine Corporal makes less because they're 1 rank lower. The Marine Corps will tell you this is because Marine Corporals are better trained and more competent than Army specialists. Maybe that's true. Maybe working harder for longer, with higher standards, produces better junior leaders. Or maybe the Marine Corps just convinces young men to accept more responsibility for less money by telling them they're elite. Promotion to E5 sergeant takes another 4-6 years of perfect performance. That's right, you can spend 8-10 years in the Marine Corps before making sergeant. Compare that to the Army's 6-8 years to E5. The Marines make you wait longer, work harder, and meet higher standards for the same pay when you finally get there. And here's the crushing reality. Many corporals never make sergeant. They hit the wall at E4 and stay there until their contract ends. They leave the Marine Corps after 8 years as corporals, having led Marines in combat, having performed at sergeant-level responsibilities, but never getting paid as sergeants. The Marine Corps thanks them for their service and promotes someone else. Sergeant E5, welcome to the grinder. Making sergeant in the Marine Corps is like making staff sergeant in the Army. It takes longer, requires higher standards, and proves you're among the few who can handle sustained leadership. You've served 6-10 years. You've led Marines in training and possibly combat. You know the Marine Corps inside and out. Marine sergeants are expected to be tactically perfect. You don't just lead your squad, you're expected to be able to step in and lead the platoon if necessary. You're expected to train junior Marines, enforce standards, maintain discipline, and accomplish any mission with whatever resources you're given. The standard is perfection. Anything less is failure. But you make $2,881 per month. The same as an Army E5, with less time in service and lower expectations. Marine sergeants work 70-80-hour weeks. They deploy constantly. They're responsible for everything their Marines do, on duty or off, and they make $34,572 per year for this crushing burden. The promotion rate from E5 to E6 in the Marines is brutal, about 20 to 30%. Most sergeants never make staff sergeant. They spend their entire careers at E5, leading squads, training Marines, maintaining standards, and never moving up. The pyramid narrows sharply above sergeant. The Marine Corps needs thousands of sergeants. It needs hundreds of staff sergeants. The math is unforgiving. And here's what makes it soul-crushing. With 8 years of experience, make $2,881. The college degree they earned at age 22 is worth $738 more per month than your decade of service. Forever. That gap never closes. The lieutenant will always make more than you, no matter how much more experience and competence you have. Staff Sergeant E6. The grind intensifies. Staff sergeants are the backbone of Marine leadership. You've served 10-14 years. You've deployed multiple times. You've led Marines in combat. You're responsible for training junior NCOs, maintaining unit standards, and making tactical decisions that determine mission success or failure. But here's the brutal reality of E6 in the Marines. You do everything an Army E7 does: serve as platoon sergeant, train junior leaders, advise company commanders, but you're paid 1 rank lower. Marine staff sergeants are platoon sergeants. Army platoon sergeants are E7 sergeants, making $3,626 per month. You make $3,144. Same job, same responsibility, $482 less per month because the Marine Corps structure compresses leadership into fewer ranks. The promotion rate from E6 to E7 is even worse, about 15 to 20%. Most staff sergeants never make gunnery sergeant. They retire at E6 after 20 years. Having served as platoon sergeants, having trained hundreds of Marines, having deployed a dozen times, they leave making $3,144 per month with no pension until they hit retirement age. 2 decades of service, and 80% never make it past staff sergeant. Gunnery sergeant E7. You've made it to the middle. Gunnery sergeants are the senior enlisted leaders at company and battalion levels. You've served 18 years. You're an expert in your field. You advise officers, train staff, NCOs, and maintain institutional knowledge. You're respected by everyone below you and most people above you. But making gunny in the Marine Corps is like making master sergeant in the Army. It takes longer and requires higher standards. Army E7 SIF typically have 15 years. Marine E7 SIF have 18 years. You waited longer for the same pay grade. The Marine Corps will tell you this proves you're better. The bank doesn't care about Marine pride when your mortgage is due. Promotion to E8 requires another 8 years and even more brutal competition. Only about 10 to 15% of gunnery sergeants ever make master sergeant or first sergeant. The rest plateau at E7 and either accept it or leave. After 20 years of service, most gunnery sergeants retire at E7 making $3,626 per month. They spent 2 decades being told they're elite. Their retirement pay doesn't reflect it. Master Sergeant, First Sergeant E8, the senior enlisted elite master sergeants are technical experts. First sergeants are company-level commanders enforcers. Both are E8. Both require 18 to 22 years of exceptional service. Both have seen everything, done everything, and survived the grinder that eliminated 95% of their peers. First sergeants in the Marine Corps are more feared than any other senior NCO in any service. They enforce standards with religious zeal. They destroy careers of Marines who fail to meet standards. They're the voice of the enlisted force and the keeper of Marine Corps culture. Crossing first sergeant is career suicide. But here's the financial reality. After 20 years of service, you make $4,518 per month, $54,216 per year. A Marine second lieutenant with 1 year of service makes $43,428 per year. You make 25% more than the newest officer after serving 20 times longer. The gap between enlisted and officer compensation is permanent and unbridgeable. Sergeant Major, Master Gunnery. Sergeant E9, the top of the mountain. Sergeant Majors are senior enlisted advisors to battalion, regimental, and division commanders. Master Gunnery Sergeants are the technical experts in their field. Both require 25 years of exceptional service. Both are legends within the Marine Corps. The Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps is a single billet, the senior enlisted Marine in the entire Corps, advising the Commandant. It's the peak of enlisted achievement, but after 25 years of being told you're elite, you make $5,714 per month. That's $68,568 per year. A Marine 06 colonel with the same 25 years makes $95,985 per year, 40% more. The colonel had a college degree at 22. You've spent a quarter century bleeding for the Corps. The colonel makes $27,000 more per year. Always. Officer ranks. The privileged class. Second lieutenant, 01. Brand new and deadly. Marine second lieutenants are fresh out of the basic school, a 6-month course that teaches infantry tactics to all Marine officers regardless of their specialty. They're 22, 23 years old. They lead platoons of 40-plus Marines, and they're advised by staff sergeants with 10 to 14 years of experience who keep them from making catastrophic mistakes. The Marine Corps likes to say their lieutenants are better trained than Army lieutenants. Maybe that's true. The basic school is longer and more intense than Army officer training. But the result is the same, a 22-year-old with 6 months of military experience commanding Marines who've served for a decade. And that 22-year-old makes $3,619 per month, more than an E5 sergeant with 8 years of service, more than an E6 staff sergeant with 12 years. The college degree is worth more than experience, competence, and leadership proven under fire. That's the system. First Lieutenant 02 through Captain 03, learning and leading. First lieutenants have survived long enough to learn from their mistakes. Captains command companies, 150 per se, 200 Marines, and are actually competent leaders. Promotion to 02 is automatic after 18 months. Promotion to 03 is nearly automatic after 4 years, unless you catastrophically fail. A Marine captain with 6 years of service makes $4,813 per month. A Marine staff sergeant with 12 years of service makes $3,144 per month. The captain makes 53% more, despite having half the time in service. The staff sergeant has twice the experience. The captain has a degree. The degree wins, always. Major through Colonel, 04 to 06, the field grade officers. Marine majors serve as battalion operations officers. Lieutenant colonels command battalions, 800 MIs at 1,200 Marines. Colonels command regiments, 2,000, 4,000 Marines, or serve as senior staff officers. Promotion to major is competitive. About 80% of captains make it. Promotion to lieutenant colonel is more selective, about 70% of majors. Promotion to colonel is brutal. Only 50% of lieutenant colonels make 06. The pyramid narrows, but compared to enlisted promotions where 80 to 95% never make it past E6, officers have a much easier path. A Marine colonel makes $7,999 per month. That's $95,988 per year. A Marine Master Sergeant with the same 22 years of service makes $54,216 per year. The colonel makes 77% more for having a college degree and avoiding the enlisted grinder. Both dedicated their lives to the Corps. One had a degree. That's the difference. General officers, 07 to 010, the untouchable gods. There are only about 80 generals in the Marine Corps. Out of 186,000 Marines, 0.04% reach general officer rank. Marine Expeditionary Forces and serve as advisors to the President. A sergeant major with the same 25-30 years of service makes $68,568 per year. The general makes 3 times more. Both gave their lives to the Corps. One had a college degree. That degree is worth $135,000 per year in additional pay. The Marine Corps tells enlisted Marines they're the elite. They're the proud. But the pay structure reveals the truth. Officers are more valuable. The system is designed to reward education over experience, rank over competence, and privilege over sacrifice. Why the Marine Corps structure is designed to make you suffer. The Marine Corps rank structure isn't harder because it produces better warriors. It's harder because the Marine Corps has convinced young men that suffering proves you're elite. And once you buy into that belief, you'll accept slower promotions, higher standards, and the same pay as lesser services. Marines promote slower than the Army at every rank. E1 to E2 takes 3 thef, 6 months longer. E3 to E4 takes 1-2 years longer. E4 to E5 takes 2-3 years longer. By the time a Marine makes sergeant, an Army soldier with the same entry date might be staff sergeant, same pay at each rank, but the Marine waited years longer. Marines have higher standards for the same pay. A Marine corporal must demonstrate leadership ability. An Army specialist doesn't. Same E4 pay, different expectations. The Marine Corps tells you, this proves you're better. The bank account says, you're just working harder for the same money. The promotion rates are deliberately lower. The Marine Corps could promote more Marines to higher ranks. They choose not to. They keep the pyramid narrow, the competition brutal, and the standards high. This creates the elite culture. It also creates thousands of Marines stuck at E3 or E4 for their entire enlistment. But here's the truth about being elite. The Marine Corps is smaller than the Army because it's a specialized force. Not because every Marine is individually superior. Marine infantry might be better trained than Army infantry. But Marine cooks, mechanics, and admin personnel do the same jobs as Army soldiers for the same pay after waiting longer for promotion. The Marine Corps has convinced generations of young men to accept more suffering for the same money by calling it elite. Marines are proud of their suffering. They brag about how much harder it is to get promoted in the Corps. They mock Army soldiers for having easier promotion standards. But when they leave the service after 4-8 years as lance corporals or corporals, the civilian world doesn't care about Marine pride. The job application asks for rank and time in service. Lance corporal with 6 years looks worse than Army sergeant with 6 years. Same pay while serving, but the Army rank translates better to civilian employment. The Marine rank structure is designed to maintain the cult of suffering that defines Marine culture. Slower promotions prove you're tougher. Higher standards prove you're better. Lower promotion rates prove you're elite. And Marines accept this because they've been told since boot camp that being a Marine means embracing the suck. The officer advantage is even more extreme in the Marines. The gap between enlisted Marines and Marine officers is even wider than in the Army because the Marine Corps culture worships the officer-enlisted divide more intensely. Marine officers are gods. They're called sir or ma'am with religious reverence. Disrespecting an officer is career-ending. The distance between officers and enlisted is maintained through strict formality, separate facilities, and cultural reinforcement. Army officers and soldiers can be friendly. Marine officers and enlisted Marines cannot. Marine NCOs know their place. They advise officers, but they never question them publicly. They execute orders without visible hesitation. They maintain the fiction that the 22-year-old lieutenant is a tactical genius because preserving officer authority is more important than acknowledging reality. And the compensation gap reflects this. A Marine captain with 6 years of service makes 53% more than a staff sergeant with 12 years. In the Army, the gap is similar in dollars, but the Army promotes to E7 faster, so the time gap is smaller. Marines wait longer at lower ranks before reaching the same pay grade gap. The Marine Corps is built on the idea that officers lead and enlisted follow. Period. No specialist track, no warrant officer shortcuts. The Marines have warrant officers, but they're rare. No ambiguity. You're either enlisted or you're an officer. And the gap between them is absolute and permanent. Why Marines stay despite the system. If the Marine Corps promotes slower, pays the same, and maintains higher standards, why do people join? Why do they stay? Why do they re-enlist after being stuck at Lance Corporal for 4 years? The answer is the cult. The Marine Corps has created the most powerful military culture in America. Being a Marine isn't just a job, it's an identity. Marines don't say, I was in the Marines. They say, I am a Marine. Present tense. Forever. The suffering is the point. The harder it is, the more valuable it feels. The slower the promotions, the more meaningful they become. The higher the standards, the more elite the identity. Marines who survive the grinder feel like they've earned something that Army soldiers got for free. And that feeling of earned superiority is worth more than money to many people. The brotherhood is real. Marines who've suffered together form bonds that last lifetimes. The shared misery creates connection. when everyone around you has been through the same grinder. You trust them completely. That trust is worth accepting lower promotion rates and the same pay as lesser services. But here's the dark side. The Marine Corps uses this culture to extract more work for less compensation. They tell you that complaining about slow promotions means you're weak, that accepting suffering proves you're elite, that comparing yourself to Army soldiers means you don't understand what being a Marine means. It's brilliant manipulation. Then exploit that culture to get more work for less money. Tell people they're elite while paying them the same as everyone else. Make them proud of waiting longer for promotions. The Marine Corps has perfected this over 248 years. That's every rank in the U.S. Marine Corps explained, not the recruiting poster version where every Marine is a hero. The real version, where Lance Corporals wait years for promotion to Corporal, where sergeants do staff sergeant jobs for sergeant pay, where the promotion rates are deliberately kept low to maintain the elite culture. The ranks are the same as the Army. The pay is the same. The responsibility is often higher. The promotion timeline is longer. The standards are stricter. And Marines are proud of all of it because they've been convinced that suffering for the same money proves they're better. Maybe they are better. Maybe the grinding promotion system produces more competent leaders. Maybe the higher standards create superior warriors. Or maybe the Marine Corps has just convinced young men to accept less for the same money by wrapping it in flags, honor, and the title, Marine. Work harder and prove yourself repeatedly before giving you what other services hand out faster. And Marines call this elite. Welcome to the Corps. Semper Fi. Now get back to work. Lance Corporal, you've got another 3 years before you even have a chance at Corporal.